I'm going to explain as simple as possible what on earth OpenClaw is. And don't worry, I'm not here to hype you up. I'm not here to give you a bunch of developer jargon. I'm going to explain this in plain English, whether or not you should even care this exists, or is this just a bunch of nerd stuff? Let's jump in. Welcome back, y'all. Let's learn about this little lobster right here. The lobster. OpenClaw. Why is it called OpenClaw, Corbin? Because it used to be called Claudebot and Moltbot. What happened, Corbin? Because Anthropic was like, yo, stop using our branding. And then they switched up. They realized Moltbot was a trash name, so they switched to OpenClaw. TLDR of what on earth OpenClaw even is. Put simply, it is, drumroll please, a 24/7 AI assistant. Now on the surface, that sounds extremely lame, and it sounds like we've done this before. But in reality, there is a little nuance here. If you use ChatGPT, if you use Claude, if you use Gemini, you know how it's like you give input and then you get feedback, and it's like a chat system, like texting your friend, like, hey, what's up? And then you expect a response and then not to leave you on red, like that situation. What OpenClaw can do is we can actually set up a system where it's autonomous, where essentially it runs 24/7 based off original task or its own quote unquote soul. Don't make it complex, y'all. Basically, what a soul is in this context, like SOUL, is how it behaves and interacts with its environment. For example, you probably have a soul, or do you have a personality? That's your soul. I'm not going to get too spiritual on y'all. Just think of it like how it behaves, okay? So as we know of these kind of trends, like people just blow this up and they don't even know what they're talking about. And they're like, oh my gosh, have you not used OpenClaw yet? Like you're falling behind. I genuinely think you're not. And to be honest with you, I really only see one use case. But let's just take like a very high ceiling look of how we even use this tech. Am I going to make a video of like showing you how to set up OpenClaw? Possibly. But as you see in the space, there's like thousands of tech YouTubers now that can show you how to do that. I'm here to give you a high level of like, do I even want to entertain this? So first things first is open source, which literally means it's free. I know it's kind of weird. Us software developers, we're nerds. We just give stuff for free because we think it's cool and we iterate off of it. But there's two ways you can use this tech. Local, which literally means on your machine. And when I say on your machine, I mean the laptop, the desktop, like all of that, what you paid for, like that MacBook, the Windows, whatever you paid for, like that, it can run on it. If you do a local LLM, simply a model that only expends electricity that can run on your machine. I'll explain that a little bit more if that sounded confusing, but the point is that you can either run this on your computer, which I know is probably the most powerful use case, or alternatively in the cloud. So here's the situation though. It's a 24/7 assistant, which means it can do things we've seen in the past. What are things we've seen in the past, Corbin? Oh my gosh. Did you know that OpenClaw can look at your emails? Did you know that you could text OpenClaw in Telegram and like have a conversation with an AI model, go back and forth? So cool. I don't care. And I say that not to sound harsh, but I say that because we could have already done this. We could have already done all this. So who cares? Like it can look at your email. It can respond to your email. This tech existed. That's not why I care about OpenClaw. So in reality, if you plan on using OpenClaw for that kind of stuff, lock in. There's other ways to do it, but you can still do it, I guess. Like maybe long-term it has a use case, but to be honest with you, it is what it is in that situation. Like, oh great, you have a Telegram bot. Oh, that Telegram bot can then access your emails. Like we could have done this already. So therefore, when setting up OpenClaw, you have the ability to set up in the cloud. Should you set it up in the cloud if you have no development or technical experience? I would advise no, but who cares? Do whatever you want to do in life. Go smoke weed, go drink, just do whatever you want to do in life. But I'm telling you from a software engineer's perspective, you probably don't want to do this. You're going to get a lot of tutorials like, hey, set up your Claude bot, or sorry, the OpenClaw in the cloud. The reason you don't do this if you have no software development experience is because of the fact that this is extremely unsecure. And one very specific pain point that I saw happening, which I'm like, that is sneaky. You could set up your OpenClaw in the cloud. And then if you gave it access to your emails, someone literally phished a person that had OpenClaw access to their emails. And what I mean by that is that, okay, so this little AI bot has access to all your emails. Email. When an email comes in, this AI model can read the email and then interact with the email if you give access to it, and then respond to the email. Well, what happens when that email quite literally is what we call a prompt injection, where it could take control of your computer, or alternatively, more likely, take control of your inbox, delete your inbox, like a bunch of crazy stuff. Now, is this a fringe case? Is this almost like fraud or something like that? Yeah, like in reality, most people probably won't even know your email or even know your OpenClaw exists. But the point being is that there is risk associated when running this in the cloud. Who cares? Risk is life. Do it. Like, I'm not here to tell you not to do it. I'm just telling you that this is real. This is risk. You have to ask yourself, why is OpenClaw now existing? Why is it open source? Why has no other big tech company ever released a product like this? Because of the legal implications. Think about it. I am giving you a 24/7 AI assistant, and I haven't even gotten into the very, very cool stuff about this assistant, which is you can quite literally give it access to your entire computer, do things like screen record, do things like take images, do things like code, do things like this can literally be you on your computer. That's cool. Why hasn't this been done before? Because you really think some company like Anthropic's gonna deal with the legal implications of literally getting access to your entire private information and doing stuff with it? I mean, they probably already do that a little bit with the Claude bot, right? Where you're just like chatting with it. But the point is that there are certain lines that big companies will cross. That is why a innovative thing like OpenClaw that happened now happened through open source, because end of the day, the onus of risk is on you. So if you want to be dumb and set this up in a way that you could really cook yourself, proceed. But we'll jump into how to set this up if you actually want to use it in a secure way. Let me go over a use case that's a real use case of this, so that I can give a little bit more clarification of why you should use this. So I think the powerful reason you use OpenClaw is using it locally. What I mean by that is that this unlocked a very big thing in the space, which allows for the ability to run 24/7. Now, in theory, you could run 24/7 using the cloud and I don't care. I want to run this locally. And the reason running a model locally is so advantageous is because the cost is next to nothing. And why is it when I run an AI model locally on my computer, I don't have to have the internet to talk to it? Why is it next to zero? Because all you're paying for is the electricity, literally the electricity to connect your laptop or desktop. That's all you're paying for. When you use services like Claude and ChatGPT that aren't open source and you're hitting their backend, that's why it costs so much, because they are premium charging you. For them to run that model, it's literally hardware connecting to you and they get paid. There's a whole other rabbit hole I could go down to where stuff's gonna get a little crazy when it comes to the open source world, where open source models are becoming better than the paid models. But the point being, this is where OpenClaw is going to excel. Local. Let me caveat real quick before I jump into this little local situation, because this is honestly the coolest part of OpenClaw for me personally, and where I see the real use case actually happening. Like, you know, those posts like, oh, I bought a Mac Studio. There's some value there. But if you're buying a Mac Studio just to read your emails, what are you doing? I guess you could. It's all levels to this, okay, y'all? I think in reality, most people, what they say they can do now, and oh my gosh, this is a breakthrough, you could have already done it. So let me just go over the stuff that you can't have done before OpenClaw, which is a thing called a daemon. Now, this is a Greek term that's used in software development, which basically means a software program or application or operation that is always running on your computer. A great way to think about this is your brain. It's always running, whether you're asleep, whether you're awake, whether you're watching this video, always running. This is insanely cool. Also, it comes from Greek daemon because it's like a spirit. Oh my gosh, the spirit is always moving around. Like, the Greeks are crazy. I love Greeks. 24/7 daemon. This is awesome. So what this is, to put simply in this context, is an AI model that's always operationally on. Now, this only really has real value if the model is local on your computer, because as we said earlier, it costs you $0. Now, what is a real use case of this? There's probably a ton, but the real use case I'm finding myself realizing and testing still is something I want to call Aries. So what Aries is a fork of OpenClaw. What is a fork, Corbin? You know what Cursor is? Like, you know the app builder Cursor, and then you know there was another app builder that was open source called VS Code. So what Cursor did in the early days is they literally just took all that open source code, duplicated it, and called it Cursor, and then added layers. That's all I'm doing here. I'm taking the infrastructure of OpenClaw and I'm adding layers, and I'm calling it Aries. What are those layers, and where is the value that I personally see when it comes to this tech? Software development. Duh. Aries is a real test, and Aries is something I need to see if it actually works, because if it does, it's cooked. The point of Aries is taking the tech found up here, a 24/7 daemon, or just a model that's always on, and having it create real software. This is a real use case by OpenClaw that wasn't possible before OpenClaw, because now we can quite literally create local AI models that communicate with each other forever and ever. I guess until you could in theory just unplug. I unplugged you and then it's off, right? But OpenClaw created a system now where you can essentially have AI models talk to AI models, and therefore planning can occur, execution can occur, and a bunch of implications is behind that. Aries itself, I'll do a deeper video if it actually works. I have a little article here. It's nice and beautiful. If you're familiar with me, if you know this channel, I don't like doing videos like, oh my gosh, OpenClaw's here, make 100K in a month, 10-step guide, pay me $100. Like, I don't care. I'm here to really give you real perspective from a real software engineer. So what I'm telling you is that I'm not going to jump the gun. I'm not going to say, oh my gosh, I I created AGI. I don't care. I'm going to do tests on Aries. So I had to buy a Mac Studio, which was like 9 grand, which had 512 gigs of RAM in order for me to do these tests. To put simply, the tests are going to prove whether or not AI models can create real software. And not in the sense of like vibe coding. I'm saying they can create real software with no user input, e.g. you. Like, I don't need to be there. I just give you essentially a plan, build XYZ, and it handles everything from there on out. And it goes 24/7, 7 days a week, 30 days a month, 28 on February type of situation. So what does this mean for you? If you're like, Corbin, I want to use this for my business, there's potential here. But this is so early stages that it's going to require you to do a lot of experimenting, a lot of iterating. So I suggest you, if you like that kind of thing, like this actually is cool to you, yeah, buy a local environment. Like a very popular one is like people buying Mac Studios. Buy whatever your equivalent is. Point being is that the local environment is where OpenClaw is going to excel. The cloud, yeah, you could do it, but it opens you up to more security risk. It opens you up to more costs because now you got to pay for stuff. Like the cloud is, I'm looking at the cloud like this is the old way. If you really want to build a 24/7 AI assistant that functionally works and acts like an AI assistant, and you're not paying a gazillion dollars just to keep hitting the Anthropic API endpoint, local is the way. All right, last notes here on OpenClaw. TLDR, OpenClaw is a 24/7 assistant that actually works and it can actually be autonomous, but my suggestion to you is go local because the cloud is just cooked. If Aries actually works, I am not only going to test it on a real software, Thumbio.com. I showed how to build it in 6 hours. You can check out this channel, but the real software here is Thumbio. I'm going to plug Aries into Thumbio and then see if it can handle PR requests, see if it can handle building out real features within a real software that is scaling right now. But on top of that, I'm going to see if Aries can essentially create softwares from scratch that are real. These are questions that need to be answered. These are questions I don't have the answer to yet. Now, if it's 2 months down the road, you look at my X, I'll probably say what the situation is here. But if this genuinely can do what I think it can do based off my test now, and I'm 80% sure it can, then I'm gonna leave you with this. OpenClaw might have been the inception of software going to zero in the sense that there's no other way to put it. Building software isn't going to be using an app to build software. If OpenClaw and these tests are true, building software is a system. What I mean by that is the environment itself is sole purpose is to build software. No human input, no back and forth, no latency. Aries, a fork of OpenClaw, you give direction, a plan, an execution model, and it handles everything. If you're a nerd and you want to check out OpenClaw, I suggest you do it. It's really fun. But that just concludes today's video. So as you already know these style videos, make sure you like, and I'll see you in the next OpenClaw. W or L?